welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're talking about Richard Jewell, a 2019 film directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Paul Walter Hauser as the titular Richard Jewell. I don't have an extremely well-versed knowledge in films directed by Clint Eastwood. I saw and reviewed the most recent, which was Mule, which I thought actually stood out as original and different, but not necessarily a phenomenal film by any means. And even though it's a true story, I had never heard about Richard Jewell nor the things that he went through, so I was really interested to see what this thing was all about. The real question is if it's also nothing special, or if it's so good that it makes people want to filch it off the shelves. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, filch, to steal secretly or casually. Richard Jewell is about a man with the highest respect for authority, even when that means the same authority has no respect for him. He has a keen eye for detail and constantly does things by the books while others laugh and jeer at his expense for doing so. But it is that behavior which ultimately saves hundreds and potentially thousands of lives at the 1996 Summer Olympics when he notices an abandoned backpack under a bench. The other cops just think it's full of beer, but Richard Jewell forces them to call it in. They soon learn that it is indeed a threat, which results in an explosion. At first he's hailed a hero, but soon the FBI look at him as the bomber in order to get attention. First of all, let's get this out of the way. Knowing nothing about the story going in, I couldn't help but think about Paul Blart Mall Cop. I mean, it's the same basic idea. You got a guy who's not actually a cop, but really wants to be a cop, follows all the rules while others don't, isn't taken very seriously, but at the end of the day, he's right in what he does, and he gets wrapped up in a terrorism plot. It's similar. And I'd have to say it's also obvious that Richard Jewell looks like Paul Blart, too, with the whole mustache thing. I honestly sat here and thought, was Paul Blart Mall Cop at least in part based on Richard Jewell's life? I don't know. Now that we got that out of the way, though, this movie's good. Like, really good. I really enjoyed myself with the movie because of so many different reasons. I think most people watching it will also be able to notice the performances from everyone are really good. Everybody does such a great job. And I know most people are going to be looking at Kathy Bates because she got that Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. But screw that! Because everybody did such a great job in this movie that I'm surprised it didn't get more Oscar nominations, because it really should have. Without a doubt, the performances are what drives this film. But thankfully, that's not the only good thing about it. The characters, too, are fleshed out and colorful. Everybody stands out in one way or another, and you can tell that they all have their own part to play in the film. Usually with true story, biographical films, you don't get that so much because in real life, most people aren't that colorful or interesting. Real people are unfortunately boring most of the time, but a majority of the characters in this movie are strong characters, as is their importance into what's going on. Everything connects like one big giant puzzle, so I really appreciated that. It's amazing to watch how both the government and the media scrutiny can transform a man's life and his outlook on so many different things. I've known people like Richard Jewell in my life that are just so down to earth, good human beings that want to do the right thing regardless on how often people look down on them for it. And throughout the years, you see them become bitter and cold because they lose touch with why they're doing it in the first place. This film does such a remarkable job at both showcasing the fact that he was indeed doing the right thing, and it also answers why you don't see so many people like Richard Jewell in the world anymore. As human beings, we are imperfect, and we rely pretty heavily on social acceptance. It's like something Jewell says in this movie. What happens when another bomb like this goes off, and you have somebody who could do something about it, but they decide not to because they don't want to become the next Richard Jewell, and they just run away instead? Then what? To me, that becomes a really powerful sentiment that rings really true, because the media didn't just ruin Richard Jewell's life. No, they created a frenzy that might be entertaining to watch on TV at home, but you wouldn't want it for yourself. I think this film does a really good job encapsulating just how powerful something like media coverage can be. I could go on and on about how some technical things made this film good, but I'm going to jump to some of the bad. I put air quotations on bad because nothing about the movie is inherently terrible. It's definitely not, but one of my rating categories was rated the lowest in comparison to some of the other stuff, and that was behind the scenes. And look, from what I've seen from Clint Eastwood, he's a great storyteller, but I've yet to see anything crazy good in what his films look or sound like. There might be a couple of things in Richard Jewell that are good in both lighting and color, but truthfully, that's it. Nothing about how he utilizes cinematography stands out. Nothing about the editing really struck a chord with me, and neither did the music or sound. Everything worked well enough for the film to make sense, but nothing stood out. And again, doesn't make anything bad, just a little frustrating because every other rating category did stand out as great. I rated Richard Jewell a score of 93%, 93 out of 100 possible stars, granting it the letter grade of A. There's a reason I don't do my end of year awards until April, guys. The best movies always come out at the end of the year, and I don't see most movies in theaters, which means I won't be able to see these movies until April. But I'm gearing up for those Demi Awards, just you guys wait and see. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this biographical film. What did you think about it? Also, which film is your favorite from Clint Eastwood? As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review and would like to see some others like it. Hit the thumbs up button because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!